everybody. That's what I always say to my students. And first and foremost, I saw the graph that was posted up there. But you have to congratulate yourself. Pat yourself on the back. Give yourself a high five. Look at the person next to you, give them that air high five. Right? Because sometimes you look at athletes and they have these all-star competitions and they don't think twice about the talent that they have. They take that onus that they have talent, they're skilled. And now a lot of times as educators, we kind of minimize our talent. So now's the time not to minimize it. You do belong here. You've been hand selected, so just take that. All right, don't feel anxious. I know that's a natural feeling, but take onus that you are talented. You deserve to be here. And so first and foremost, this is the key thing for Laura for organizing a great event. It's actually outstanding. Last night was a great kickoff. And over the next couple of hours, you're going to experience some great things. I'd like to thank my fellow squad members. It's a pleasure to work with you again. And also to you. It's an honor to be before you right now. So I'm entering my 7th year in education. And for the last 16 years, every time I was running before students, I've had over 1,000 of them, as many of you have had. I always let them know that you're going to take your talents, and when you graduate, because I taught high school, make sure you use those talents to dismantle systems of oppression in your community or beyond. Take your talents and make sure you dismantle those systems of oppression that are in the community. I say that all the time. But can I be honest with y'all? I never be quiet, don't tell anybody. I didn't really practice what I was preaching to my students. I didn't really practice what I was preaching to my students. I sat on my talent. I felt comfortable where I was at. And where I was at, I was really doing well. I was flourishing in my classroom, in my school. I was doing really well. I was getting awards. I was being tapped for leadership roles. I was doing everything that made me feel comfortable. But I was telling my students something otherwise. But as you grow older, as I grow older, as you can see my grades, I've learned, and I tell my kids this, that if you are talented, you're never really comfortable sitting on it. Something's always going to be nagging at you, telling you you have to act. And so I started getting that nagging feeling. The first was 2 years ago when COVID hit. And when I realized that the district that I was in, which is servicing predominantly Black and brown children, was not adequately in line with what other districts were in more affluent areas. I started nagging at myself, was I right? I also started getting that nagging with the political climate that was very racially charged. It started nagging at me. It started pounding at me when I saw images of George Floyd being murdered by a person who actually protect people. It started nagging at me, it started hurting me. And then when I came back from the pandemic, I walked in the classroom, it was sweltering because my classroom didn't have air conditioning. And at that point, I realized I had to get off my derriere and act on my talent. And that's when I applied at Teach Plus. Now, over the next couple of hours and couple of months, you are going to be around a great group of people. You're going to start learning how to tell your story. You're going to learn how to speak with politicians in a way that's going to enact change. You are going to learn how to advocate for political initiatives around equitable funding, early childhood education, diversity, equity, inclusion, and how to increase the teacher pipeline. But I'm not going to spend the next couple of minutes speaking upon that. Is it okay if I share my story?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So I'm going to break it down to a simple formula. I am not a math person. Is there any math people here? God bless you. So it's really simple. All right. So talent plus teamwork equals power. I'll say it. Talent plus teamwork equals power. So next week, August 28th, next Sunday, marks the 59th anniversary of a very historic event that occurred in our nation's capital. A history people, what happened? The March on Washington, right? Now, when you think about the March on Washington, who pops in your mind? Okay, right? Right? Right, a lot of people, but more likely I hear from my students, MLK, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. So let me use the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. to kind of support this theory that talent plus teamwork equals power. So on that day, August 28, 1963, Dr. King stepped before the podium before 250,000 people. Can you imagine that? And he gave the I Have a Dream speech, which I try to say goes down in history as the most memorable speeches ever. Right? That's me personally. And in that, he said, I have a dream that one day my 4 children will live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character, right? And those words resonated, not just with the people in that crowd, but around the world. And that helped kickstart a major part of the civil rights movement, right? But Dr. King wouldn't have been at that podium if it wasn't for teamwork, right? And sometimes when you have a master narrative, you lose out the people behind the scene that actually make these things work. So let's talk about teamwork, right? Let's talk about teamwork. Now, let's talk about the talent. Dr. King was a skilled orator, powerful preacher, and a visionary leader, second to none. But the teamwork was A. Philip Randolph, right? He started it, right? He actually had that vision of the March of Washington back in the 50s, when he was time to segregate the military. But A. Philip Randolph was a person who knew how to bring different people together. Right, Laura? He knew how to bring people together, right? He had the ear of President Kennedy, like, we're gonna do this, right? We're gonna have a conversation. But he also knew how to bring the urban league together, led by Whitney Young, right? We brought the NAACP president, Roy Wilkins, and this young, charismatic college student from SNCC, John Lewis, right? Good trouble. He brought him together. So he was able to bring those two people together, to make magic happen. But there were some other components of that teamwork. Can you imagine 250,000 people converging on our nation's capital right now? Can you imagine like the traffic jam? Where the bus is gonna go? All right, where they're gonna be the water utensils, the August, the lodging, the timing, all that stuff that A. Philip Randolph may have not had the trouble with. As a kid, you weren't born at that time, so they couldn't tap you. Right? It's just a person, right? It takes logistics to make everything that you are doing right now. But they did have Bayard Rustin. Who had been doing that for years. So he's like, look, I'm gonna have it. So when you bring the talents of Dr. King, you bring the teamwork of Randolph, Young, Wilkins, Lewis, and Rustin together, you have power. And what did that power do? By the next year, the Civil Rights Act of 1964 was passed, right? So you are now using your talent. Don't put your talent in a silo. Don't think I know everything, right? Use the people that are in your group, and even if you're not in your group, tap into that talent. Because when you do, powerful things are gonna happen. So let me just briefly, I'll be out your way. Let me briefly share 2 things that struck with me. The first thing is a couple of weeks ago, I got an email. And in that email, it was from my state senator, Art Haywood. And it said on the newsletter that we are my office is forming a partnership with Building 21. And in that, it had an interview with Tamia Riley. Tamia Riley was a student I taught, and Hitcher and I taught, and she wanted to become a teacher. She's at Arcadia now. And she was in there telling about it, sharing her ideas. And I'm like, wow, I played a part in that. Right? I played a part in that. Because I remember in October, Teach Plus is saying, reach out to your senators, your representatives, which I did. We had a meeting. He came to my school, he spoke with the 12th graders. And now, even though I'm not there to enjoy any of that, right, magic is happening. There's that partnership, that's power, that's change. The second thing too is in June, this past June, I went on a job interview. I went on a job interview in a suburban district about 15 miles north of Philadelphia. As I'm stepping into the administrative office and I'm meeting with the director of HR and assistant superintendent for this new position I'm in, on the wall, I saw a familiar sign. I saw the T Plus logo. And I looked closely, I saw the Culturally Affirming Schools name, which is the best group. But I saw that, and then I saw familiar pictures. I saw Lisa, I saw Brigitte, I saw Ben, Jamal, Brianna, Jen, and myself on there. And I'm like, wow, that's the toolkit that we created. That's what we did. And it was at that moment I realized that our work transcended the Zoom meetings that we were having. It transcended my classroom to room 305. It transcended my school. it transcended my district, and that the work that we're doing was actually sparking change for diversity, equity, and inclusion in districts that I didn't even imagine, and none of us were walking on. I'm like, man, guys. And so I was like, wow, and at that point I then realized that I now can go before my students and say, take your talent, lead the community, and work on systems of oppression with the talent you have, and I can now mean it. So thank you for allowing me to share a couple of words of wisdom to you all. Just once again, you're gonna be anxious, anxiety, but you have to understand that you belong here. You are talented, you're here for a reason. And whenever you feel that you're gonna get before a politician, you feel intimidated, just close your eyes. Just close your eyes now. I want you to close your eyes. I want you to think about all the students that you have led over the last couple of years. Just think about them. They got your back, right? Think about all the things that you told them. And when you're there, you're speaking on behalf of them because they may not have that voice that's present. And then when you open them, you're gonna see that person across from you as a person that's gonna make sure that they're gonna be doing the job that they've been elected to do. Thank you.